Hey guys, it's Carolyn, and welcome back to the podcast. And today we're talking about business on purpose, which is always a great discussion I like to have of you running your business and your business not running you. And so today we have Scott Beebe, the founder of My Business on Purpose. Good afternoon, Scott. How are you?
Carolyn, I'm doing great. Thanks.
So before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so Ashley and I have been married 26 years, heading into 27, and there have been three other humans that have come out of that relationship. We've got a 23-year-old daughter. She's married, and she and her husband are currently living and kind of touring around Europe for about 4 months. So
Oh, wow.
on ramen and peanut butter as best they can. And they think the money might run out here pretty soon, but nonetheless, they're out, they're doing it. And we couldn't be prouder of them. And then we've got two sons, both in university. One's a senior and one's a sophomore. And we've got a mission statement as a family to be a light and create space through wisdom, adventure, and time around the table. So that's my personal life. And that parlays into our business life, where we do one thing, we do it really, really well, which means we do a lot of things not well at all, but this one we do really well. And that is to liberate owners from chaos to make time for what matters most.
That is so important and really is a trick to figuring it out of running a business and still having a life outside that business.
Yeah.
So what do you
Trying.
mean when you say business on purpose? Tell me what
Yeah.
that means.
So if you go way back, there's kind of two sides of business. There's the principle side of business, the things that don't change. They've been true for years and decades and centuries and all that. And then there's the strategy side of business where you look at it and go, these are the things that'll update. 20 years ago, if you wanted to run a MySpace ad, then, or if you even could do that, I don't even know. That was your strategy. And then in 5 years that changed. And then it was Facebook and it was SEO and it was, and so all these things run in cycles now. And that's the strategic side. When you're running a business on purpose, you're really kind of trying to lock in on the principle side. And if you look back, business is actually just what a wonderful platform. In fact, you and I would not be talking without business. So it's an incredible platform that if you look way back thousands of years ago, the first time that it was said that God ever put his spirit in another person was the spirit of craftsmanship. It was the spirit of being able to produce something. And so you look at that, and then about 1,000 years later or something, this statement was recorded: write the vision down so that those who read it may run. Write the vision down so those who read it may run. Many people, when they start a business, they kind of just wing it. We just start it and we get going, and all of a sudden we make money, and then we realize we've got to pay taxes, and then we realize we don't have enough money for the taxes, and then we don't have enough people to make the money, and it's just like, so the phrases we hear are things like, I'm constantly dropping balls, I'm spinning plates, I'm throwing Hail Marys. And what we want to do is we want to say, hey, you can stop putting out fires. You don't have to do that. In fact, most of the fires we put out, if you just let them burn, they put themselves out. Instead, what we can do is we can lock in on the principles of business. So let's define what those are. And then once we define what those principles are, we can begin to work them with what we call the RPMs of great leadership: repetition, predictability, and meaning. If you can rope those three things in, repetition, predictability, and meaning, then we can leverage those principles, work them over and over and over again. And now we have a business on purpose rather than a business just chaos.
Okay, so you're working those principles into the different systems of the business, right? So are all the systems in a business the same, or are they different?
Ooh, very, very industrious question. I don't get that a lot. We believe, yes, they are. We believe there are four major systems in every single business, and they're in this order. I think this is really important. So there are also four themes, but we just made those up. So I'll give those to you as well. But the four systems we did not make up. These are principles. They've been there for a long time. Number one, marketing. None of these will be a shock, by the way. So number one, marketing. Marketing is telling the world that we're here. Hey, we're here. It's what I'm doing right now. Anybody that's listened to your podcast has not heard of me. And there are some people that are listening to your podcast that have not heard of you. Mm-hmm. And so we're telling the world that we're here. This is marketing. The thing we like about marketing is in our work, we can offer value in marketing. So rather than interrupting people like Seth Godin talks about, we can bring value in education, and we call that marketing. We let you know that we're here. That leads to the second system, which is sales. So we date in marketing. That's where us and the prospect are dating, and we're getting to know each other and all of that. Then we move and we start to walk down the aisle of sales, where at the end of that aisle, we'll stand at the altar and sign a contract. And you don't do that in marriage. You sign a covenant, or you make a covenant. But in business, we sign a contract or some sort of agreement or whatever. And so we are now at the altar of sales. So we start with marketing, we're dating, we walk down the altar of sales. That leads us into a life of operations or fulfillment. We have to actually produce the product or the service that we have. And so marketing, sales, fulfillment, and operations. And then that final wall, imagine it's 4 walls of a building. That final wall is the wall of administration, by which we include HR, accounting, all the stuff. It's metaphorically like we're changing diapers and light bulbs and mowing the grass at the house. I mean, that's the day-to-day life. So yes, 4 major systems in every business. And if we don't stop to identify those 4 and then begin to process those 4 and then identify who's responsible for each one of those 4, that's where chaos starts to rule instead of the purpose that we're looking for.
So you take each one of these areas, marketing, sales, operations, and administration, and then apply RPM to each one?
Absolutely. And so there's one tool that we've built. Again, this is something we've crafted. So I don't want to go back and say this is principle, but there's a tool that we built because a couple of questions that we always have to work through is, okay, how do I know what process to capture, for instance? Well, that's usually pretty easy. Somebody calls you and you go do something. Well, what's the next thing Carolyn's about to go do? Billing or whatever. Well, that's a process. Everything you do in your business is a process. Okay, so I documented that either in a document or a video or something. How am I going to remember to do it? That's a great question. And so then we use high problem words like accountability. Oh, we need accountability. And so we'll be in a group and go, accountability. Okay, that's great. But you actually have to do something with accountability. We can't just say accountability and it happens. We actually have to account for the thing and go do the thing. So we built a tool. It's called a culture calendar. It won't make any sense outside of leveraging it. But here's how it works. It's on a very expensive piece of software, by the way. It's called a spreadsheet. So we just open up a spreadsheet. And then across the top, we put 52 weeks of the year, the dates, and the first date of the week, 52 weeks a year. And then on the left-hand side, we put every ingredient that we want to build into sort of the culture of the business. And so let's say, Carolyn, you decide, you know what? It's really important that we have agenda-driven, leader-led, recurring every week, less than 1 hour team meetings, because that's how we communicate. But sometimes when Carolyn's not there, we don't meet because the boss isn't here. And so I guess we're not meeting, right? And so we all subtly think that. No. We meet every week. It'd be the most bizarre thing if we didn't have our team meeting, our coaches meeting, or our one-on-ones in our business when I'm out. And I've been out a lot lately speaking, and so I've not been able to be a part of that. That'd be very odd. Why? It's because it's on our culture calendar. It says we meet this week. Also, other things like we want to repeat our vision to our team 6 times a year. So we have a 7-page vision story, and we want to reshare that with our team 6 times a year. Why? It's because when we write the vision, those who read it may run. And there's a proverb that says, where there is no vision, people scatter. Well, we don't want our team to scatter. We want to be together. So we need to repetition, predictability, and meaning around that. So what the culture calendar does is we open it up in our team meeting. There's the repetition. We do it every week. There's the predictability. And then all those ingredients there. We remember birthdays. We put time off. We do all the life stuff and the business stuff on this one thing. There's a lot on it. There's about 60 items on it. But it usually takes us about 5 minutes to get through once a week. And that gives us the RPMs that we need, that repetition, the predictability, and it bakes in the meaning all together.
Wow. So how do you work with a business that has none of that? Like a business that's just out there running and they come to you and they're like, help. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, the idea is it's kind of like, if you have a heart problem, you go, God, how do you get the heart problem fixed? Well, you go to cardiologist. And that's what we are, is we're fundamentally cardiologists for business. And so what we've done is we've built the majority of the business tools, not the process tools, because the process it takes to run your product is different than the process it takes to run my product. And I'll even say this. If there was another firm that was at our exact size and performed our exact scope, we would still have radically different processes. And so the process we extract from you to help map because you know what to do. People will go, well, how could you work with jewelry warehouses? You're not a jewelry warehouser. And we're going, no. We're business people. And our job is to extract the jewelry warehouse production, the fulfillment, the process, the marketing, the sales from your head, put it into a documented process. And then we've got these business tools, these foundations that you sit on top. Things like org charts, job, stuff you've heard of before.
Mhm.
compensation pro formas, all of those sorts of things. So what we did is identify 36 core tools that it takes to run a business, whether you're selling podcasting service, ice cream, sport coats, or business coaching. You got to have these 36 tools for the most part. Then in that, we identify when we start working with somebody, the 300 or the 200 or the 800 processes that it takes to actually run your product. And we extract all that over a period of time. It's not overnight, of course. And so we take the templates of the business tools that we have and we start customizing those to your business. And then we take your brain and all those processes that are in your head and we start extracting that and put that on the process roadmap. Because the question ultimately is, what happens to the business if something happens to Carolyn?
Mhm.
Right?
Yes. Mhm.
And there's a lot of people that say, I don't have a business if something happens to me, because it's all up here in our heads. And so our job is to get all of that out. The good news is we've got the whole runway to go, hey, you don't even have to think about the runway or the tools. We got all that. We just need your unique knowledge to plug all this stuff in. And then we're coaches. We're not consultants. So consultants would just like create it and go, there you go. We're coaches where we actually help you create it. And then we go, all right, Carolyn, do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Oh, you didn't do it? Okay, we're going to do it again, right? And so that's our job.
Yeah, because it can seem overwhelming as a business owner to try to create all that stuff from scratch, or even, the knowledge extraction that would take to figure out all the different steps it takes to run this place.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, talking about that, how would someone build a construction company that attracts the right people? Because I know it's a culture thing, but that's a huge thing, especially now in construction, is getting the right people, and then getting the right people to stay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so when we go around, I go speak at construction shows all over the country, the Build Expos and the NHB and all of that stuff. And I'll ask informally, hey, what's the biggest headache you're dealing with right now? Two things: people, money. Those are the two things we hear doesn't matter. It was the middle of COVID. It was after COVID. It was before COVID, and it's people and money.
Mm-hmm.
And we get some anecdotal things like supply chain. Well, that's unique to the pandemic, right? And so we don't toss it out. We'll talk about it, but fundamentally we kind of toss that out. It's people and money. And the phrase we kept hearing, and I don't know if you heard this, was, Scott, nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work anymore.
That. Yes.
And so we started listening. We're like, God, I guess nobody wants to work anymore. And we were naive in this early on. Is we started to try to go figure out how to get people to work, or how to go find, and we thought it was a generational only thing. By the way, generational realities are real, just so you know. But we thought that was it, is the young people didn't want to work, they're lazy, the old people wanted to work, and they're the best, right? And so that was kind of our naive and not very well educated response. Until we started doing research. And so we found articles. So we started looking online. We found articles that either in the title or in the body of the article, it said, nobody wants to work anymore. Carolyn, these articles dated back to 1894. And so here we are thinking that we're in this novel issue that nobody wants to work. It's the millennials or the Zers or whatever. And here's what we realized. Wait a second. Is it that nobody wants to work anymore? Or they just don't want to work for you? Yeah. Because you're chaotic. And so here's what we found. If I could kind of put this into a silver bullet that is easy to understand but really hard to implement. So I'm not gonna sugarcoat this and go, oh my gosh, if you do these three things, then within a week you can do that. No, that's not it at all. It's the opposite. And so here's the one thing that every human soul, from Z to millennial to X to boomer to buster to everybody, the one thing that every human soul wants in a work: clarity. That's what they want. Mm-hmm. They want clarity. Show me clearly what you're asking me to do, and show me clearly the outcome of that thing that you're asking me to do it. So each one of our team members, and we do this with our clients, has a role scorecard. There are not 3 or 4 items on this scorecard. There are 30 to 50 items on this scorecard. And we want each team member to review that scorecard once a week. Why? Is because when I'm out doing what we do, I'm making promises to people, and that is to liberate them from chaos to make time for what matters most. I've already said it on this podcast a couple of times. How can I liberate a client from chaos that I'm not coaching, that one of our coaches is coaching? How can I liberate them from, we've got a team of 10, by the way. We work with 103 businesses around the country. So how can I deliver on my promise to business number 82 that's coached by one of our other coaches if I don't know that they're following exactly what they've been trained to follow? But instead, what we do is we sort of wake up and recreate the wheel every day. Our team members come in, and what they do is they're working for something that's sort of new every day, not new and refreshing, new and debilitating, because they feel like they're having to recreate the wheel, when really what they want is clarity, but we are unable to offer it because of what we call the founder's curse. Well, they don't do it like me, so I'll just do it myself. And then we just create this snowball cycle of us doing everything. We feel like the superheroes. We're putting everybody else down. They don't, quote, want to work anymore, and they leave.
I do have to say, though, it was probably, and maybe it was because before COVID, people needed their jobs and they would just put up with it. But it seems way more pronounced after COVID, because I'm guessing there's just so many jobs and not enough people. And so if they don't find what they're looking for, they can keep looking.
Yeah, I would say from 2020 to 2023-ish to 4, that was the case. In the time that you and I are talking right now, that tide is shifting. There are definitely a lot more people out in the market available to go be pulled from. But here's the thing, regardless of the cycle that you're in, you offer roles of great clarity through the hiring process. Everybody's hiring process should be checklisted, written out. It should be the same every time. If you hire that clarity, or if you start hiring through the lens of that clarity, what you're doing is you're giving a prospect a chance to go, ooh, yeah, it might be less money, but it's a whole lot less chaos also. And I'm willing to go from where I'm at to go to this place of clarity.
Which means a lot, because there's I learned that lesson too. So like in the beginning of COVID, I had 8 attorneys. Within a month, I was down to 2. And I've really learned that I wasn't being clear. And a lot of it is, as an owner of a business, especially working with somebody that's an attorney, you think that they should know.
Yeah.
Right. They might
I will
know,
say this,
but they don't know how you want it or how you want it.
Yes. So we use this phrase, common sense. Oh my gosh, I just thought this was common sense. Well, what's common to Carolyn is not common to Scott. Even though we speak the same literal language, we live in the same country, we fundamentally have similar cultures, but our cultures in a variety of different areas are so different. So what's common to you, if I were to ride in the car with you and you went this speed, I go, Carolyn, go faster. And so and you're like, no, I'm not going to go faster. So what's common to you is not common to me, which is why we've got to be able to get these things out. I will say this too, from the legal environment, we've got a couple of law firm clients. Doctors, lawyers, and architects can be some of the more challenging clients for us. Why? Is because there's such a professionalism around your craft, but rarely has anybody ever taught you the business side of it. They've taught you the legal side of it, the doctor side of it, the architectural side of it, but the business, that foundation to be able to run that thing. And a lot of times the cash is pretty good too. And so cash will cover up the need for the foundation until one day the cash doesn't come in. And then
until you run out of people to bill hours.
Yeah, you run out of people. Why? It's because they ran away from the chaos. They didn't want to be in it anymore.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely a changing world. Hey, I grew because of it. It was difficult, but I think that's business, right? You don't grow without pain, or just in life in general.
Yeah, Seth Godin wrote a great book called The Dip. And in it, he says, how does a business go from one peak to the next peak? And he said the naive curve is like this, just straight up. You go from one peak to the next. He said, but all of life is a dip. You go from this peak to this peak, but you got to go down in the valley. And the old adage, this cliche is a little bit cheesy, but the sun shines up on the mountaintop, but the fruit grows in the valley, right? And so we've got to be able to go down in that valley. The problem, and usually where we find people and they come to us, is they get a little braggadocious sometimes. Oh yeah, we're this big. We serve this many people and all that. And we look at them, and then we start looking behind the scenes and go, oh my gosh, you never went through the first 2 valleys that you needed to go through. And so we're going to have to take you back there. And don't worry, we'll keep the image. And so you'll still look like you were as big as you think you are. But in reality, the people that you have are going to leave because there's no clarity in the business. And we've got to go out and draft vision, mission, values, systems, processes, org charts, job roles, checklist, all those sorts of things, so that as you scale, then you'll be able to get that clarity. And you go, well, there are a lot of businesses that have scaled but have not done this. I know. And their owners are married to their business. It's not a business that can remain without the owner.
No, absolutely. And it's painful for the owner, because that's what they do. That's all they do every day.
Yeah, that's what they do.
And they can never leave it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else I wanted to talk about that I think you know about, time blocking.
Mm.
Tell me what it is and how to implement it.
Okay. Here's the why behind it. This is really, really important, is because your time is your time. We don't really inherently say that. You could hear that and go, yeah, of course. No. We really don't believe it. I believe that my time is actually your time. And I'll prove it to you. If I were to, I'll prove the inverse. With this podcast, you sent out a schedule. In your schedule, you had predefined times. You didn't come to me and go, hey, Scott, when do you want to meet? And just sort of random whenever. No, you put me in a framework. And guess what I did? I abided by it. I abided by your framework. Now, 3% of the time, I could have pushed back and gone, none of those times work for me. Is there another time that's better? That is the exception. That's not the rule.
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, you gave great precedent that Carolyn's time is Carolyn's time. And if I wanted to be a part of your world, then I'm going to need to come into your time. Well, part of you doing that is, at least to some respect, you time blocked. You've set up these times to do these recordings. That's a version of time blocking. And what it's communicated to me is you have your stuff together. Good job. Like, you've got at least that part of your life together. Now, there could be other parts of your life that are just way out of whack and chaos. So here's what we do. You have the asset of 168 hours every week. I do too. Within that, let's knock off X number of hours so we can sleep, get ready, hang out, do those sorts of things, and then block off and go, okay, I got 40-ish hours, whatever, to work, to do whatever the work mission is. Within those 40 hours, I need to steward those. I need to allocate those. I need to asset manage those 40 hours that I've got.
Mm-hmm.
I've got this list of tasks called a job role that I need to get done. Within this list of time, these 40 hours that I've got to get it done. But I need to leave some buffer space in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the big immovable task. Our weekly team meetings, Tuesday at 8 for every single person in this building. And so Tuesday at 8 is sacrosanct. That's 8 o'clock. It goes on your schedule. Those are the big immovable things. Then I'm going to take the big movable things. So for some people, that might be meeting with prospects. For some people, that might, in your world, it might be legal drafting. It could be a variety of different things. I can draft between 9 and 11 or 1 and 3, but I can't have team meetings at any one of those times. I can only do that Tuesday at 8. Okay, so I'm going to put that stuff in there, and then I'm going to look at this big movable stuff that moves the needle, but I can flex it a little bit, and I'm going to put it in the blocks of time that I naturally find the best energy to do it. Do I draft best in the morning or in the afternoon? Let's put that there. Then I start to look and go, okay, what are the small movable things? And I can start to put those in there. Let me take one that people usually struggle with, is sales calls or sales meetings or whatever. And they go, well, I gotta be ready when a prospect's ready. No, you don't. What you can do is you can say, I meet with prospects Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 to 12 and 2 to 4. What works best for you? And 98% of the time, they're going to fit within one of those blocks. But what we do instead is we just open up the calendar and go, customer's always right. And so I gotta deliver all this stuff. Instead of playing a game of Tetris with the number one asset we can't, you can make more money. You can renew. This is crazy to think about this. We can regenerate money. We can even make new human beings, but we cannot make time.
Exactly.
And so when we think about that, we need to start looking at our schedule as really kind of sacrosanct and going, hey, this is all I got. And so let's manage this. And then I want to invite other people into that. And so time block, and it's so simple. Like it'll take you 20 minutes to do. The hard part is to actually, remember our accountability word, is to actually go do it with repetition, predictability, and meaning.
I know my brain is dead after like 2:30, so you cannot schedule a podcast after that time. I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
It's like you're dragging me in here at like 4 o'clock. It is not going to be my best.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
No. So tell me, how do you work with clients? Is it a monthly, weekly? How does that work?
Yeah. So when a client starts up with us, it's very simple. We got a whole onboarding sequence. We're very proud of our onboarding setup. We actually have a new client box and all this stuff. Super swag. It's awesome. And then when they start, they have a one-on-one coach, and that's their coach. We don't like shift around and all that. We're a high touch, high frequency firm. So you work with a one-on-one coach at minimum 24 times a year. We also have an additional optional 24 touches a year and 4 live events a year. And that's available to all of our clients. It's all inclusive into their fee and what they pay us. And so Where we start out is we run a income valuation for their business so that we get a good baseline value of their business. We then start building out all their financial dashboards. We then build out all their purpose dashboards, vision, story, mission statement, core values, culture calendars, all that stuff. Then we put it all together in a business installation roadmap. Those are those 36 tools that run the business. Then we start building the master process roadmap. Those are those hundreds of processes that run the product. And so we meet twice monthly, mandatory, and then those optional twice monthly meetings that they have. And we actually run a flipped classroom model. So all of our training around vision, around how to set up an org chart, all that, we've actually digitized it in video. So our clients watch the video before they come to our coaching. So we don't have to spend our time saying the same thing we'd say all the time. They've already seen that. And now we can just customize their thing just for them during our time together.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And we work on 3 phases. Base camp, which is our first 12 to 16 months. First mountain, which is the whole master implementation phase. And then what we call the second mountain. If a client stays with us longer than 2 years, we invite them in and we begin to quarterback their advisors, their fin advisors, CPAs, all that. We get them, and their lawyers, by the way, and we get them to talk. Because too many times they'll do something with their estate planning attorney and they've never consulted their CPA or their financial advisor, where if they did that, then it would have made a much better decision for them. And so we start to quarterback those advisor conversations at that point.
Cool. Awesome. And what is the price point, if you don't mind me asking on something like that?
Yeah, no, I don't mind. So we've got a range between $2,000 and $6,900 a month. And it just totally depends on the size of the business. Most of the business we start working with, because they're our ideal client has between 5 and 100 employees. And most of them, they're going to start with us in that 5, 10, 15 employee range. And so they're usually on the smaller, the lower end of that fee range.
Gotcha. If people wanted to find out more about your coaching and everything that you offer, where should they go?
Yeah, well, here, listening to your great podcast. But then if they want to go find out, go to mybusinessonpurpose.com. And then if they go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy, then they can actually take like a 20-question assessment. And it's pretty invasive. And it'll give you a numerical value of the back-end health, the systematic health of your business. And so, yeah, any firm that wants to do that, it's totally free. And just go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/healthy. It's a beautiful assessment that we've got built. We've had hundreds or thousands of people go through it. And you have a metric value. You can go, wow, this is either I'm really depressed because it's so low, or wow, we're really doing well. But either way, it gives you a sobering look at where you're actually at behind the scenes.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Yeah, Carolyn, it's really hard to do these podcasts. I'm really grateful that you would.
Oh,
share
no worries.
that.
Anytime.
So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.